Thank you so much. Thank you again to everybody who is here today. Look forward to sharing with you some strategies to help your children get unstuck in mathematics. If you have any questions, as Maurice said, please feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I have a few slides and that we can use as a tool to help us as we navigate these questions around helping children flourish in math. So we have to answer some questions about the why, and then we're going to dive into solutions. So again, welcome to those from Zambia, Kenya, Rwanda, and Nigeria, and the US. Thank you for joining us. And anyone else who's here, please feel free to put it in the chat where you're logging in from. So in the next 20 minutes, let's talk about why capable kids get stuck in math. Let me do one more thing. So we're looking at why capable kids are stuck in math and why it's almost never about the issue of am I a math person or not? Those kinds of questions we don't have to. We're going to address that because that topic of being a math person is actually something that is not grounded in reality fully. There are some people that have some extra boost in their math ability, we would say, but those people are very few, and I might touch on one of them soon. Then there's hidden systems. There's some systems you can use in terms of implementation that would be very helpful for you, and we'll discuss those as well. How math is paced and the issue of mastery are very important. And then there's a simple framework at home that we'll also talk about to build confidence and momentum, even before the new school year. And for those who are in school now, we can use that as well. And then where is your child at today, right? If we had to ask, where's your child at today? That's a question that we'll have a link for you, a free resource that you can use to find out your child's math ability today. So your child is actually capable of far more in math than they realize, like a lot more. And I think that a lot of families don't realize that when the school says your child needs to learn topic 1, 2, 3, for example, before they move on to the next grade level, your child is actually capable of so much more. But there's actually a principle called the Pygmalion principle and the Golem principle. Let me actually talk about that for a second. The idea of the Pygmalion principle and the Golem principle is this idea of what you expect of people will dictate how far or how high they go. What you expect of people will dictate how far or how high they go in a subject. And so if you expect more from a student, they tend to do more than could have happened. And if you expect less from a student, then they actually end up doing less, way less, right? The current education systems are not calibrated for excellence in mathematics. Some countries are doing better than others, but in general, children are capable of so much more. So parents at home, you have the opportunity to increase that possibility of capability, so to speak. So the problem usually isn't the child, it's the systems around them. And so let's show you how to fix them. So we hear these things often where somebody says, I'm just not a math person, right? Avoid, maybe your child avoids or dreads doing math homework, right? By the way, parents, if you have time, do some research on the history of homework. Like just look up the history of homework and try to notice some of the trends there. You'll find some interesting practices that we have today that have actually caused children to hate math more than love it, right? And we want them to love math. And that's one of the things we'll talk about today. Maybe your children shut down or say, oh, I'm not smart, or they reread the notes and they can't solve them. Or maybe they were doing well and now it just feels like they're not doing well anymore, right? Let us address some of these things. So there's three hidden systems that can cap potential: the pace, testing, and practice. So let's talk about the first one, the pace. The problem is that school math moves by the calendar, not by mastery. So the class moves based on a fixed schedule. So if a child hasn't mastered a topic, sometimes they're like, nope, it's time for chapter 2. You just keep moving and moving, right? And these small gaps don't stay small, right? They keep growing. So a primary level fraction gap becomes a very serious problem in algebra. And we see this in the standardized tests of some of the countries that are represented here. So The problem is that many schools feel like they have to finish the syllabus by a certain date because the Federal Ministry of Education said this and that. Well, the problem is math doesn't care about the Federal Ministry of Education. Math cares about mastery. If you don't know mastery, if you haven't mastered a topic, mathematics doesn't care what your country says. So some of the best mathematicians in the world actually dropped out of school. Literally, the school system didn't work for them, and they became in the top 10 in math. Just think about it. That's crazy. In math history. So I'm not saying people shouldn't go to school, and I'm not saying there's not a place for the government. What I'm saying, though, is when it comes to math, math does not care about any systems that don't follow a mastery-based model. Mastery requires I need to master something before I move on, right? So whenever a student has a shaky foundation in something, they should not do the thing next in line until they master that foundation. There is nothing else we learn in life that we learn the way we learn math for the most part. The way we teach math, if you were to copy it and teach it to anyone else with any other skill, they would hate that skill. The way we teach math makes it so people hate math. If I taught you how to play tennis or football the way math is taught, you would hate tennis and you would hate football. Because we never allow you to move on to the next level if you don't know how to do the basics. I'm not going to teach you how to shoot a soccer ball or football from outside the 18 when you don't know how to shoot the ball from close to the goalpost or like a penalty. How are you supposed to do that better, right? That's just one example. And if there's soccer players or football players here and you guys disagree, let's talk about that later, okay? But anyway, so try this tonight. Give your child a problem from one or two topics below their grade level, right? So, for example, let's say your child is 12 years old. Give them a problem that we expect a 7-year-old to know, right? And if you see that the child is doing it with confidence, give them the next topic, right? And the next topic. And I have a list of all the topics, which is part of what the Counting to Calculus program is about. So countingtocalculus.online has all these resources and free assessments for you to try out. Speed over understanding. Number 2. So math is often taught and tested like a race, right? Kids are memorizing. Sometimes they don't know the reasons why, but they're just going through everything, trying to memorize it for an exam. But then when they go to an exam and the question looks different, some of them find that they're in trouble. They haven't come to understand what they were supposed to learn. What should we do instead? Focus on understanding. Make sure that your child understands the why as much as possible. If possible, even give them a chance to learn the history of the concept. Speed comes after I've mastered it and I understand things, and then I get faster. But first, I need to understand. So try this tonight. Put the timer away, right, for a set for your math time, right? And just on a single problem, ask, why does this work? And just try to figure the why first. Now, parents, if you feel that you're not comfortable teaching the why, that's okay. There are some very good videos on YouTube on whatever the topic might be. Just take that topic and say, find a video that says the why, right? Number 3, and this is where I am very concerned for, I grew up in Nigeria, and we had 84 students in my classroom. I remember when I was in 12th grade or my last year of high school, 84 students. You can't have a robust discussion with 84 students. So some people are just going to be passive. They're not going to actively engage with the class, right? And it's not only that, but sometimes students say they understand what the teacher is doing, but when it's time to do it on their own, they say, I don't understand. So watching and copying and rereading, right, feels like learning, but they have not built the ability to solve alone. So we need to also focus on helping students do practice on their own. So let's make practice active. Learning sticks when a child pulls it from memory and explains it back in their own words. I tell my students that until you can explain something to me, you have not mastered it. The standard of math expectation needs to be, you must be able to explain it back to us. If you cannot explain it back to us, you have not mastered. And if you've not mastered, then you need to go back and work on the problems. What about this issue of I'm not a math person? The issue is that the systems are so broken that some people have now put a label that says I'm a math person or I'm not a math person. But the reality is that everybody is a mathematician in one way or the other. The question is, are you a good one or a bad one? Now, there are professional mathematicians, I get it, but we all have some ability in mathematics. And we need to maximize our potential. That's part of what I want to encourage families to do. I work a lot with homeschool families. I've worked a lot with them through the years, and I'll be doing a lot more with them now. But what I could tell you is that one advantage homeschooling has above other methods is that they have more flexibility. And in the times that we're living in, that flexibility becomes a massive advantage. There is no advantage in putting a child in a math classroom where they feel lost and there's nothing happening to help them get back on track. There is no advantage to that. What we need to do is to make sure that they learn the mathematics concepts, they practice the concepts, that they think of themselves as, I can do this. Because they can. God has created them with the ability to reason, right? Mathematics, I believe, is the evidence for the existence of God can be seen in the fact that mathematics even exists. Because mathematics is dealing with these abstract ideas, and our minds are able to comprehend these abstract ideas. That tells us that this universe is not just a material universe without a God that transcends the universe. So that's another day's topic. I've given a talk about this on my on other YouTube channels, and you can let me know if you want me to send you one of those. But mathematics is evidence that God exists. And if we were created in the image of God, we should see certain traits, and we see some of those traits. The ability to reason. I tell people, when last have you seen monkeys building skyscrapers? We don't see that with other animals, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should go build skyscrapers. Honestly, I'm kind of in that phase of life where I don't really care much for skyscrapers in downtown cities. Sometimes it's just too busy. But the point I'm trying to make is human beings are different. But why are they different? God has given us certain abilities, and mathematics is one of them. So we need to change the story. Math is learnable. Math is gettable, right? It's the gaps and the method that becomes the problem, not the talent, right? Now, struggling with the problem, it's not a bad thing, right? We want to get students to get to a point to learn how to wrestle with problems and win. But sometimes they will have to do that with their friends, maybe in a group. So separate who your child is from what they simply haven't mastered, right? Let's remove this idea of, I'm not smart. Children say that sometimes, I'm not smart. But instead, they need to realize, I haven't mastered this yet. That word yet is key. I haven't mastered it yet. So how do we go from stuck to unstuck? Here's a few things as I wrap up. Number one, find the exact level of your child. Where exactly is your child in math? We have a free assessment on our website. Actually, we have a few free assessments. Try out the elementary math assessment or the algebra readiness assessment and see where your child is at. See how good they do on those. So locate the first domino, so to speak, that if, you know, there's this game in dominoes, or there's one called Zenga. If you remove a certain block, the building falls, right? So try to find the limit of where your child is at using one of our assessments or meeting with our team members. The earliest concept that your child hasn't truly mastered is where you want to start, and make sure that they master those topics. Then close one gap to mastery. Okay, start one by one. Let's take a topic, let's master the topic, let's look at examples, let's watch some videos, and then let's try the next topic. Practice actively for about 20 minutes a day, right? It's not just enough to hear somebody else explaining it. Let the children practice. And then connect the dots, tie it to the history and the real life application whenever possible. And let the children celebrate as they master the topics, right? Repeat this loop over and over again, and I promise you, your children will be very good at math. I have a quick story here. One of the best in math in my school growing up in high school, I invited him to give a talk not too long ago to some students that I'm sort of mentoring in Nigeria. There's a program called the Junior Engineers, Technologists, and Scientists we have in Nigeria, and I do some mentorship there. The funny thing is, I found out that that program might have actually started in Zambia first, but I didn't know that at the time. But they have it in Nigeria, and I was the president of this program about 21 years ago at my school, and now I give talks regularly to that group. These are students that are eager to learn, and they come in and ask questions about building solutions for Nigeria. And we have a network of, it's called STEM Clubs across Africa. That's a program that we want to really see grow, where students in Zambia, Uganda, Rwanda, Nigeria, Kenya are all working together. Ghana, Cameroon, all these countries collaborating. Like, let's solve electricity, let's solve clean water problems, let's solve healthcare together using innovation. So I told him to give a talk, and one of the questions was basically, can you tell me, because I remember he wasn't the best in our earlier years in high school, but when we got to about 2 years or so before the end of high school, he became so good in math. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night when I was in boarding school, and I would see him doing math problems. So I asked him, how did you become so good at math? And he gave us the secret that day that helped him, or he told us the thing that happened. He said that when he was in high school, he realized that there was a lot of free time that we had in boarding school. And sometimes people were just wasting their time. And so what he did was he thought, okay, I'm going to become one of the best. And he started studying extra. He went to the library. He was using more resources. I didn't know he was doing all this. But I remember waking up in the middle of the night around 2002, 2003. I remember waking up and I saw him standing doing math problems next to a spot, right? Remember, in boarding school, you don't have comfortable chairs to sit at least in our boarding school. And he was just doing math problems. And later on, he became one of the best. He graduated like number two, he was the best in advanced math in my whole set. But in regular math, there was another guy who, I'll tell you his story another time. That guy was also using strategies I didn't know. And that guy was number one. See, these guys were number one and two, and they had strategies. But how often do students learn strategies? We just give them the problems, right? And if there's a teacher here, please, I'm not trying to make teachers feel bad. I'm just saying our system doesn't allow us to focus on helping students build this mastery. So where do we go from here? Let's pick a topic. Choose something that your child is working on now, if you want. Find 3 problems that they can do without any need for help, right? Or show them how to do it and then see if they can do it by themselves. Let them explain it to us. Let's see if they can try doing the problem, right? If they can't, then we need more examples. If they don't know that topic in front of them, go back to the prerequisites. And this is one quick plug for a useful case for AI tools. There is one use case for AI that I think is relevant here for parents who are not comfortable with finding the prerequisites. So the prerequisites are the topics that you need to know before you do the topic you're doing now. And what you should do is you could put it in an AI and say, my child is struggling with fractions. Or you could, if you don't want to say my child, just say, there's a kid struggling with fractions. What topics do they need to know before they do fractions? Here's what AI will tell you. AI will tell you your child needs to learn prime factorizations and prime numbers. Your child needs to learn multiplication and simplification of fractions. So I can tell you those are the prerequisites before your child learns fractions, right? And I used to do this before AI came before AI ever came to the scene. So the point is, prerequisites are just a skill of teaching. And if you are not comfortable with knowing what those are for a topic, then use the internet, talk to your friends, reach out to our team. We could tell you what the prerequisites are for any topic based on what your child is learning. And let me be clear on one thing about math that we really need to clear up. Math is not bound by any country's standards. Math is universal. It's universal and it doesn't care what country it's being taught in. What I mean by this is, if your child is doing fractions in Kenya or Nigeria, it doesn't matter. Fractions are fractions. So don't ever limit yourself to, well, that's what my child's teacher is using, or that's what our country said. Okay, the best mathematicians in the world, for the most part, right? They're from all over the place. Granted, a lot of them are from Europe, but there are some of them from India, a lot of them actually, a lot of them from Greece, a lot of them from Egypt, a lot of them, by God's grace, are going to start coming from everywhere. Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, everywhere, right? Because the world has got to a point where there's now a new level of opportunity that people have not tapped into. And that new level of opportunity is, it doesn't matter where you live, you can become the best in math in the world. It doesn't matter where you live. We really have to run with that and help as many children as possible realize that. So I say that to say, when your child is struggling, don't feel like, well, I have to ask someone in my child's class or my child's teacher. No, you can ask anyone, because math is math, right? So let's do a free diagnostic and find out exactly where we're at. So one mastery path from counting to calculus, right, without any limits to age, without any gaps being left behind, can be found with the counting to calculus program. You can use that program as a tool to help your children go to the next level in mathematics. We offer small group evening classes for our students in the US, but in Africa, there's apps that we have available as well. So these are times in the US from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then the first step again is to take that free assessment. You all get a free gift today, and I'll post it in the chat so that everybody can access my book, Tools for Mastering Mathematics. It's a free resource. You could also find it on our website, but I'll send it out to everybody. Basically, it shows you what is math, how does math work. You get a mastery checklist from counting to calculus. Actually, I'm going to show you guys my screen with that, and then we're going to look at some history and real world, examples with math and some math history. So your child isn't broken. Nope, the system, right, is broken, and you can change it at home, or the system is what has caused this problem. Go with mastery over pace, understanding over speed, active learning rather than just passive listening. Not yet. That word yet is key. That word yet is key. So run the mastery loop, find the first domino, watch the momentum return, and you'll be good to go. If you have any questions, feel free to visit our website, countingtocalculus.online. You can also email me at amosthemathguy@gmail.com, amosthemathguy@gmail.com. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to have Maurice come back and maybe coordinate some Q&A for us, and then we'll be wrapping up in about 20 minutes. Thank you so much for your time. Look forward to having a discussion.
Well, thank you, Amos, for the presentation. Well, we've gotten some great questions from parents, but before I do that, I'd like to start with some few common ones, and then turn to some of the questions that the parents would have sent. Well, the first question that I have for you, Mr. Taufa, is this one. Many parents feel their child has already fallen too far behind in math. And it is even true that some would feel that they are late for them to catch up, especially with an older student preparing for exams, for instance, exams like the national exams or SAT and the like. So what would you tell to such parents?
What I would tell the parents is there is a famous mathematician whose name was Ramanujan. And Ramanujan was one of those guys that you would have thought this is a lost cause. There is no hope for this guy. But Ramanujan found a book. And you know what's funny? Give me 1 second, parents. The book is right here. I can't believe that I actually had it right in front of me. So I have it right here. I'm going to turn the camera. Let me tell it as a story. So I'm going to turn the camera blurriness off here, and then you guys will see. So give me 1 second. So what you see here is the book that Ramanujan used. It's called A Synopsis of Elementary Results in Pure and Applied Mathematics. One book. And this Indian boy from Madras decided that he wanted to really learn math well. And so he started working well in math. And again, I'll send the name. You could also take a picture of my screen if you want the book. This is a book that everybody should have at some point. And what happened was Ramanujan realized mathematics is beautiful and step-by-step understanding helps. Do you know that this young poor boy from Madras in India went on to start doing a lot more math, and somebody told him, why don't you write a letter to Cambridge University and see if they'll invite you to study mathematics? Remember, this is somebody in India writing a letter to the best institution at the time, one of the best in the world and still one of the best, called Cambridge University in the UK. By God's grace, we're going to be taking teachers there next year. We go, actually, sorry, what year are we? 2026. Yeah, 2027, God willing. We're doing a teacher meetup there. And if parents want to join us for the tour of Newton's house and Newton's college, that's part of what we're doing. Isaac Newton. But Ramanujan wrote a letter to them. Do you know that? Imagine getting an email, you know those spam emails people send, and they tell you that your uncle left you money and stuff like that. Please don't reply those people. There's a lot of scams out there. But do you know that Ramanujan's letter got to Cambridge? And Cambridge University, the guy who got it, G.H. Hardy, it's like, yeah, this letter is random. Like, can I come and study? But the guy has his proofs. And his proofs make sense, right? And the reason why I bring this up is that Ramanujan, I apologize, my stand, we just moved to a new city and my stand is not ready yet. But he just moved to, so basically Ramanujan wrote to him, the man looked at it and he says, this is phenomenal work that is attached to this letter. So that means this guy who wrote the letter knows something. Do you know that they invited Ramanujan to come to Cambridge? Do you know that Ramanujan just blew everybody's mind when he came to Cambridge? And do you know Ramanujan only lived till the age of 32, but he's considered one of the greatest mathematicians of all time? Why do I bring this up? Ramanujan was not traditional. He wasn't one of the kids that we would have thought you're going to be the best in math when you're old. No. He started simply by using the right tool and following the systematic way of learning, and he became exceptional. What Ramanujan did will work for you. That's my point. Remember when I said pace and mastery? Our school systems, I'm so sorry to put it bluntly, our school systems globally are not conducive for math education excellence. They're actually quite toxic. And there's a whole book about this called The Mathematician's Lament. If somebody from our team can please post A Mathematician's Lament in the chat, that would be great. We have to focus on helping students to learn mathematics systematically and not simply on the base of the schedule of a country. That is unhealthy for anybody. That actually demoralizes children. And one of my goals in life, God willing, is to change that. I want every child in every nation to have access to the best math tools to become the best they can be in math, because God has blessed us with this ability and this tool. And unfortunately, the current education system globally, not just in your country, even in America, even wherever, any system that tells a child to simply move at the pace of a grade level has done a disservice to the child. The child should learn math on the base of mastery. So if you feel like, oh, is it too late for my child? No, it's not too late. Start from the basics. Not just this book. This is just an example. There are many, many books. Start from the basics and work your way to the end. And please email amosthemathguy@gmail.com, amosthemathguy@gmail.com. I have a free book that does the same thing that this author did. Same thing. Start your child from place value. Does your child know what the place value is of a number? Does your child know how to add? Does your child know how to subtract? Does your child know how to divide or multiply? Does your child know how to divide? We need to build every single step, and we have those for you all the way to the most advanced topics. You just reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to share that with you. So I'm going to pause there, see if we have another question, and I'll put a post in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Talker, for answering that question. We do have another question actually from one of our participants, and that's Francisca Wanja. Please forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it right, but Francisca is asking, how can we handle math exams pressure even after well prior preparations? How can we handle math exams pressure even after well prior preparations?
Have you guys, thank you for your question, Francisca. And by the way, I noticed that my team posted the book in the chat, but team members, just so you know, only the host and panelists are seeing the post. So we need to repost it so everybody can see it. Maurice, I know, has done that already. So if you can post it there, that'll be great. So here's the interesting thing. Have you guys ever noticed, like, for example, there's a World Cup going on in the US right now. and I just saw a short clip, and they showed how there's a whole team of security personnel that are going around the soccer fields before the games and running different scenarios, right? They want to make sure that they're ready for they don't want any trouble to happen, right? I want to encourage all of us to note, you have to put yourself in a simulation similar to the exams you're going to take. That means if your exam is going to be at 8 a.m. on a Saturday in the next 7 weeks, you need to be practicing at 8 a.m. on Saturdays for the next 6 weeks. Put yourself in the same situation, remove distractions, try doing this over and over again. Whenever you find that you've made a mistake on a problem, go back and see why you were wrong. The reason why people are very good at math, I'll tell you right now for free. The reason why some people are very good at math is they know how to know what they got wrong before. So they correct. That word correction is very important. I remember in primary school, and I don't know if you guys do that in your countries, we would do our work for the class, and then after the teacher grades it, they will tell you to do your corrections. Those corrections are very important because they are showing you where you have misunderstanding. I want to say one more thing about testing. That's a whole webinar, Maurice, if you don't mind. Let's do a whole webinar on how to test. We're going to talk about how to take tests. But do you know that when it comes to testing, some students are good in the concept, but they have something that some people will call test anxiety. They break down, they freeze up. We need to learn how to avoid freezing up. And the way we avoid freezing up is to practice a lot. By the grace of God, when I was in primary 5, I was one of the best in the National Common Entrance exam at my school. I was the best in the Common Entrance. So I never did primary 6 or 6th grade because I scored higher than all the 6th graders or all the primary 6 students. And I thank God for that opportunity. But here's what I want to say. What helped me become the best in that year? What helped me be the best is that I did corrections a lot. If I would get something wrong, I would go back and find out why I was wrong. So when the test day came, I was ready, right? So we need to pray, right? I understand there's an importance of praying and asking for grace and strength, but there's a role for preparation. God could have used anybody to kill Goliath. Why did he use David? Have you thought about that before? I mean, there's many other reasons, but I'm just speaking from reading as I read the Bible. What do I take from that? Partly, David was also prepared. God is not against preparation. I think that's one mistake we make sometimes. We don't invest in preparation enough. And what do I mean by preparation? Preparation is not just going through the problems. It's doing the corrections. It's talking to others about what you've learned. The more you talk to others about what you've learned, you're strengthening your thinking for how to do those problems. So those are some things for us to think about. I'll pause there and see if there's any other questions. But Francisca, excellent question. If you don't mind, let's do a whole session on just test taking.
Well, thanks, Mr. Taufa. Yeah, please, our audience, if you have any question, post it in the chat or in the Q&A session. But for now, I'll actually ask another question that is quite common. If a parent is, how do I ask this? Let me ask this way. How can parents help with math at home when they are not confident in the subject themselves? How can parents help with math at home when they are not confident in the subject themselves?
That's an excellent question, Maurice. And Maurice, if you don't mind, I also gave you a couple more links to give everyone. And so please help us pass it on. And I've included a website with some videos for parents and then a channel for them to watch, a video about a mathematician's lament. So let me answer that question. So parents, I completely understand where things might be tough in terms of maybe your experience with math. And let me be honest with you about my experience with something that I'm not good at. So I'm not good at cars. I'm not good at repairing cars. Growing up in Nigeria, if your car had a problem, you took it to the mechanic and that was it, right? I didn't sit there and try to fix the car. Maybe some of you, your parents did, but we didn't do that as much. And part of it was also because my dad worked for a company before that, and that company, they would take care of the servicing of the cars. So we never had to do anything with that ourselves. Now, the reason why this is important is what happens if there's a car problem? Well, my children know, okay, daddy's not good with cars. And they also joked yesterday, my wife and I have 7 children, and we homeschool, and my 5-year-old was telling my wife something like, Mom, if you go here and it's time for the meal, daddy doesn't know how to cook well, or daddy doesn't know how to cook. And I'm just like, who told you daddy doesn't know how to cook? Anyways, apparently he thinks I don't know how to cook. He doesn't know I know how to make rice. But the point is that we have to look at the things that we're not good at and be honest about it, and find somebody who's good at it and talk to them and see if they can become a partner with your family while you're working to learn the skills that you need to learn. So for parents, you have to make a decision. Do you want to become the primary math teacher for your child, or do you just want to be a coach to support them? Regardless of what you decide, you want to be a coach. That's number one. All parents, we need to make sure we're coaching our kids to math excellence. But do you also want to be their teacher? If you want to be their teacher, then I want to encourage you to join the teacher training program we're doing right now on classical mathematics. Funny enough, it's actually happening. It happens once a month. And today is the day, right after this webinar, at the top of the hour, we're starting that training. That's why we're ending in about 10, 15 minutes, because we have to move to the other webinar. But I just want you to know that we are there to help you. We're there to support you. There's no fee attached to it at this time. You could just come in and learn and get support. If you want to help your children, you need to know mathematics, the content, but you also need to know how to teach mathematics and look at issues of pedagogy and strategy, right? And so there's 2 ways. Some people are good at math, but they don't know how to teach. Some people know how to teach, but they're not good at math. You want to have both. And so I have some resources I can share with you. Feel free to reach out and I can share that with you. But the last thing I want to encourage you to do is be honest with your children. Don't try to pretend like you know the math that you don't know. Let them know that you're also learning. No matter how old you are, though, everybody needs to work on becoming better in math, no matter how old you are. Why? Because math is beautiful, because math is important. The world runs on mathematics. So I want to encourage you to think about improving your math skills by going through something like Counting to Calculus. I sent the link, or Maurice sent the link in the chat. You could start from your foundation. Make sure you're good with arithmetic, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Make sure you're good with fractions, decimals, and percents. Make sure you're good with ratios and proportions. Until you're good with the things I just listed, please don't try to do anything in algebra. And this is advice for your students as well. The reason children struggle is because their foundation is not solid. So get your foundation solid over the next 3 to 6. I mean, you could do that over the next 8 to 12 weeks, honestly. All it takes is be systematic like Ramanujan, and you will be able to show your children some of these connections. I will mention one more author. His name is Leonhard Euler, or Leonhard Euler. He was a Swiss mathematician. I'll put his name in the chat. Just look up Euler and then check out his book as well. I think it'll be a great resource for parents. We have it on my website ready for you. So please you could get a free account on we have a website portal that has a free account that just has some of these resources available. So check it out. Let me know if you have any questions. Over to you, Maurice.
Great, thanks. Another question from an anonymous attendee, and they're asking, how do you develop a mentality in liking math? How do you develop a mentality in liking math?
Liking math is probably the most important skill you need to do first, ideally, even though I found out some research showed that before you like something, it sometimes helps if you succeed at it. So I guess you should find ways to succeed at it, and then you will begin to like it more. And how do you succeed at it? Start where you know you're comfortable and just do some of those problems and find out that, I can get this. I understand this. Okay, there's hope for me. Just remember those words. There's hope for me. I can do this. I could do this. And you keep pushing, right? Let me say something else to everybody on the call again. What you learned growing up was not mathematics for most of you. That was not math. I'm so sorry to tell you. That was just a bunch of random disconnected things that you were learning. Mathematics is like music and art. It's beautiful. Like it literally is. And if you don't agree with what I just said, then you that wasn't math. And I'm serious. Many people who have taken the time to study this will realize what we do to children in school is not mathematics. It's a lot of drills. Now, is there some elements of math we see? Yeah, there's some elements of math, but let me give you an example of the equivalent in music. Imagine you were in a music class for 12 years, and I never allowed you to play music. But all I taught you was look at the score, look at the semi-brief, look at this note, but I never allowed you to actually hear one song. Would that be fair? Would that be fair to you? No. That's what we're doing to children. We're giving them all these symbols and notes and whatever, but they're never playing music. They're never doing math. That like in its fullest form or anything close to it, they're not really doing it. And then we tell them, if you don't do well on this, you're going to be taking an exam and you could fail in life if you don't do that. So then we threaten them. So first of all, we don't give them what they need. Then second, we threaten them. And then we wonder why people hate math, right? You wonder why people hate math. It's because of our methods. And I don't know if some of you had some math teachers that were strict. I remember those days in some of our schools, those who failed the math test might even get spanked or they beat them with a cane. Like, that's not how math works. The way math works is that you have to build on mastery. And so I say this to encourage us to realize that when it comes to mathematics, the reason why some people hate it, and by the way, I didn't always love math. There was a time where I struggled with it. I thank God I got past that. There was a time when I hated advanced math because there was no application. I thought, what is the point? But by the grace of God, I'm a physicist today. I'm a medical physicist who writes math curriculum. And, you know, in some accounts, is because if you write math curriculum, you can also sometimes be categorized as a mathematician. So in some sense, I'm a physicist and a mathematician who was not always somebody who loved math. What happened? I saw the patterns more and more. I saw that math is not guesswork. Math follows rules, but math also is a story. It's beautiful. That is what changed it for me. And now I want everybody in the world to become very good at it and to love it. And honestly, I was just telling somebody yesterday, math is gotten to a point where if a child is not learning advanced math, if a child is not learning math in the age of AI, their brain and their muscles are going to get weaker because they now have a tool that can do everything for them, quote unquote. So we need to use math as a way to strengthen their thinking. That's something I want parents to realize. Math is beautiful, math is important, but it's also one of the best tools to strengthen your thinking. And so please, let's do all we can to begin to give math a chance. Give math a chance again. I'm sorry on behalf of all the bad math experiences you've had. And I want you today to say, I'm going to give math a chance. I'm going to give math one more opportunity, maybe one more. Let's see if we can figure this out. And then let's talk. Let's get you on track to loving math and helping your kids. Thank you so much. Over to you, Maurice.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Taufa. Just two last quick question and some bullet answer for you. The first one, really, I know you're a Christian man. How would you teach math from a Christian perspective? What are those things that parents should be looking out when they're trying to identify how math is taught from a Christian perspective?
Have you guys ever thought of the fact that we can calculate with exactness when the next solar eclipse is? Have you guys ever thought about the fact that we can predict exactly when Earth and Mars will be the closest in distance? Have you guys ever thought about the fact that we can calculate when a rocket is going to land on the moon? How is it possible that we can be so precise? It is only on the basis that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the world that God made follows laws. And math follows that from that. So when I do math, like people like Blaise Pascal, Johannes Kepler, Isaac Newton, James Clerk Maxwell, I could go on and on with these names. A lot of those famous mathematicians were actually Christian thinkers also. And what is sad today is that we don't talk about why they did what they did. But I think it's really important that we start doing that, in the sense that we recognize this world is not an accident. The fact that we can comprehend the universe is a miracle. And that tells us that there's a God behind this universe. And William Paley wrote about this as well. I want to just encourage you to go into the classical books, go into the original documents, look at some of the original writings of mathematicians, and you'll begin to notice something. Like, they did not separate math from their lives or from their faith or from their philosophy. It was one story. And so, as a Christian thinker, for me, I believe that math is a great tool to sharpen the mind, but it also reminds me that God made the world. And some days I'm doing math, honestly, and I just want to cry. I see math problems and you just want to cry. You're like, how did those connections even happen? There's so much beauty when you start going deeper in studying mathematics, or just start seeing connections from one branch of math to another. Let me show you an equation that is very popular in mathematics. This is an equation that people used to joke and say that maybe that is, in and of itself, that evidence of God's hand in mathematics, right? So give me 1 second. How many of you have ever seen, and let me know if you can see my board. How many of you have ever seen this equation? Can we all see my board?
I can see. I guess others can see as well.
Okay. E to the I pi plus 1 is equal to 0. Everybody, please pay attention to what's going on here. E is called a transcendental number. You guys might know E. It is something like 2.7, blah, blah, blah. It goes on forever. Pi is 3.14, and it goes on forever, right? How can you take a number that goes on forever, raise it to another number that goes on forever, multiply it by something called an imaginary number, which honestly, let me write down what the imaginary number even is square root of -1. How can you take square root of -1, multiply it by pi, and E is raised to that number that you get? Again, this is crazy, okay? If you do this, it's actually crazy to try and see. Like, let me rewrite this problem so you see what I'm saying. Imagine this. 2 raised to the second power is equal to 4. That's what that means. 3 raised to the second power is equal to 9. Now, if you go and say, okay, Amos, what if I take 2 raised to the power 2.5? Well, that's going to be a crazy number. It's not as straightforward. But let's keep going. What if I say E, which is 2.7 going on forever, I'm going to raise it to the power 3.14 going on forever. Like, this is crazy. The number is even hard to compute. But I'm going to multiply 3.14 times the square root of -1, which is an imaginary number. It's not even a real number. It's imaginary. But all of this over here is actually equal to -1, and it's true. Everything in this circle is equal to -1. Guys, I know that I went fast, and we need more time to explain what this means. All I can tell you is this. There are math problems like this that make you just think, maybe this universe is not a mistake. Like, there is no reason why we should be able to take these random numbers and everything just, well, they're not fully random, but they are some of the most important numbers in mathematics. We're talking about E, we're talking about pi, we're talking about 1, we're talking about 0, we're talking about square root of -1. And do you know that all of these are connected? And here's what's even crazier. And the proof uses sine and cosine and factorials. Like, what I'm trying to show you is everything is connected, literally. Like, how is it that everything is connected? Maybe there's one creator. Maybe he created the world for a purpose. And now I need to know why I exist, ultimately, which is to know him and to live for him. So there's more to discuss on that, but I hope that was helpful. I'm done with my explanation. Over to you, Morris.
Thank you. I trust it is helpful indeed. And we do have a couple of other questions, but we unfortunately have to land a plane because we be having to transition to the next webinar with the teacher training participant and audience as well. So, but before I do that, I would like to ask this one last question, which I think should be on the mind of everyone here. And the question is, if a family makes one change over the next 30 days, what's the single most important thing you would want them to do to help their child grow in math and grow in their confidence as well?
To answer a quick question I saw in the Q&A, yes, even the best math teachers are teaching in a broken system. So I do think that the way we teach math in our schools, again, this is coming from somebody by God's grace who was top of his class in my primary school. The way we teach math right now only favors a small percent of students. It disfavors a lot. And that's why I'm concerned. And I don't like it. Because you could argue, well, I was good in math, but how many of your classmates were really good in math, right? It's not good that way. So I would say that I'm sorry to say that we teach math wrong, and we all need to repent, and we all need to figure out how to improve and help more children to love it and flourish in it. So to answer Maurice's question, here's the answer I'll give, very short and straight to the point. I love my math teachers growing up. I love math. Like, I love the opportunities I got, but I'm going to be very blunt and straight to the point. We need to stop teaching math in schools until we figure this out. It is better for a child never to have learned math in some of the schools than to learn what they're learning. Notice I said than to learn what they're learning, because that's not math necessarily. Again, read the mathematician's lament. Read the mathematician's apology. Like, guys, I'm not just speaking for myself. I'm telling you what mathematicians know. What is done in schools is not mathematics for the most part. Because if it were, students should probably be loving it and doing a lot more of it. But they don't love it, and they don't want to do more of it. And some of them really think it's terrible. That's not math, right? That's a counterfeit, and we need to fix that problem. It's like counterfeit money. We need to fix it. So now let me say this. Over the next 30 days, take back the responsibility of math education from your children. Take back the responsibility for, like, parents. You and I, we should be responsible for whatever it takes to help our children reach their fullest potential. If your child's school is not doing that, do something else. And if there's a parent who is watching from America, my advice for you is very simple. Stop using the American math curriculum today. Like today, not tomorrow, today. Why? America is the number 34 in the world in math. America is one of the worst industrialized countries in math. It doesn't make sense to allow your child to then be in that system that does not allow for huge flourishing in math. Use the Singaporean curriculum. Use the Indian curriculum. Use the Nigerian curriculum. Do anything you can do. But I want to guarantee you that if your child is only following the American math curriculum, they are undermining their talent to the max. And that is not good. I've studied the American math curriculum now for about 15, 20 years. And I can tell you, some days I just want to cry. How can you give children 3 months off in the summer from math class? Makes no sense. And we do that in America. So use the UK curriculum, use the British curriculum, but don't use the American math curriculum. Try your best. Well, except you're using one of those good homeschool curriculums like Math UC and a few others. But generally, I'm just saying a lot of math curriculum in America is really a waste of time. And we need to get back to redeeming the time, as it says in Ephesians. Thank you so much, everybody. Over to you, Boris. So one thing you can do in the next 30 days, parents, let's take back ownership and let's make sure our children are learning math based on mastery, not based on grade level. The grade levels are literally wasting people's time and making some kids fall behind. So let's allow the child to only do chapter 2 when they know chapter 1, and then they do chapter 3 only when they know chapter 2, and watch what will happen to your child. Your child will be so good in math, you're going to be shocked. And that's because that is the way the best mathematicians learned, and that's how we want your children to learn as well. Thank you to everybody, and God bless.
Well, thank you, Mr. Taufa, for sharing your wisdom with us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us from all around the world. Remember, the goal isn't just better grades, it's helping your children rediscover that they are capable, rebuild real confidence and gain skills and mindset to actually master mathematics and so much more for the glory of God. So we are hoping that you had clear steps from this webinar and that you will start applying them right away. Thank you very much and all the best to you and your families. Ciao, ciao.